to mitigate impacts. There are a number of things that an applicant can do, assuming the project's going to be approved, to minimize. In the context of my concerns for area-sensitive species, none of those would satisfy the concern for area-sensitive species. And once the encroachment occurs, that's the issue, and that's the concern.
The applicant did submit an invasive species protection or control plan. Did you get a chance to look at that?
I did, but it was, I don't know the details of it. I remember it being sort of online with the basic standards of invasive species control and monitoring to try to get a handle on that.
Did you also, we obviously just got something today actually for me on the proposed compensatory mitigation, so none of us have reviewed that, but did you see the earlier proposal in terms of the land acquisition?
I'm only vaguely familiar with it, and as I stated, in my opinion, that's sort of a token effort of, okay, well, if you can get something, then that would be helpful. It does not offset the concerns from allowing the project to go through.
Do you have any questions? I have to find a piece of paper.
Don't assume that there has been a decision. Given your knowledge as an expert, particularly in wildlife and forest fragmentation, would you characterize it as unacceptable harm to the environment? I believe you have stated that the preferred option is to avoid, but then expanded on mitigation. You have also stated that whatever development within this block would have negative impact, that none of the mentioned ways to mitigate impact would satisfy the area-sensitive species.
Yeah, I would view it as unacceptable harm because I believe that avoidance is an option. I don't believe that this whether it's this power plant or another project here on this site, that there's not other opportunities or options. And the detriment to the continuity of that habitat and the species that rely on that continuity, to me, is avoidable. And as a result, I think it's unacceptable.
Thank you.
I found my paper and I already asked the question. So thank you, Mr. Osenkowski.
I just had a question about the wildlife survey. You had indicated earlier some issues with it, that it's, could go back and look at my notes, I suppose. You had noted that it was, although for the particular
It was adequate but not comprehensive. Which is like Chairperson, I know it.
I can expand if while you're looking for your notes, if you'd like.
For the record.
No, you commented that, for example, for the particular sampling techniques that were used, they were adequate, but that overall, the survey was not adequate because it was so limited. that correct?
That's correct. I mean, most of the consultants' survey techniques were standard techniques. They weren't encompassing, though, of all. So there's various, I'll give you an example, and I'm going based on recollection. But for small mammals, for example, I believe they use camera trap surveys, which are basically set cameras up, and when something walks by, it takes a picture. The other trapping technique was utilizing Sherman traps. Looking at myself, don't want to get this wrong based on the report, but those both have advantages and disadvantages. So there's other techniques that if you really want to be all-encompassing and do everything you can to identify the species, you also utilize body gripping traps, which are snap traps, more or less. And so there are biases with all these trapping methods. So that's one example where the techniques that were used were standard. They weren't fully encompassing of the array of trapping techniques to get a full comprehensive look at what mammals are using it. But then, like you stated, the time frames would need to be expanded, not only seasonally, but across years, to gain greater confidence on inventory and so that.
So given what was done for the particular inventory that is now in evidence, would it be more adequate if it included more time during the year?
Yes.
More than just a single period within a single season?
That's correct. So,
It wouldn't have to be multi-year or capable of detecting all species on the site.
it would be my recommendation that it would be multi-year. And if you're looking to be comprehensive, then you would need to have a multi-year survey because of the changes within years. Some species, as I mentioned, are fairly cryptic. Other species you may miss just because of the timing of when you did your survey. You know, you might be within the right window, but whatever the conditions were for those days that you went out, they weren't the right conditions. So I get this a lot within my role, where I get asked for data. We have a long-standing data set of waterfalls in the state. We fly in a helicopter to do a one-day survey. The context of that is that it's plugged into a Atlantic-wide model for all states to distribute. So if you miss species at a particular area, it's not detrimental to the survey. But
Because somebody else will probably pick something up.
that's right. I mean, we're not looking at state populations. The survey was meant for a larger regional population monitoring. But I get a lot of questions within our department about water quality issues, wanting to rely on that survey without really realizing the caveat is we flew over that pond once. It took me about 30 seconds, to fly over that. Yeah, we've been doing the survey for 50 years. If you look at the 50 years, you'll find we detected that. But if you look at that one data point for that 1 year, yeah, we missed it. So that's more or less the type of risk you're taking in doing a survey that's one season.
And that's more problematic, isn't it? Or an area of high concern?
That's more problematic. That's right.
Thank you.
That leads me to one more question. And just to clarify, which I think you have, but even were we to have 5 years of data and see more state threatened and state endangered species, there's no statute or regulation or knew I was going to, yeah, exactly, that would require this applicant or another developer to actually conserve that habitat.
Unfortunately, that's correct. I think a few things, that probably typically applicants go down a road of looking at our heritage program, which hasn't existed for at least 13 years, relying on data that was collected 30, 40 years ago maybe, and just in one of the caveats that we typically have to relay to people is that just because it wasn't detected really doesn't have any bearing from the heritage program point of view. It could mean we never went there. Could mean we went there that day and we didn't detect it. You know, like just because it's there or not there, there's always a caveat of you need to really understand the data so that it's not misinterpreted. So with regard to endangered and threatened species, unfortunately, we're in Rhode Island at a disadvantage among Northeast states where we really don't have any additional protection for species that are endangered or threatened. We have a listing, but they are afforded the same protection as any other species unless they're federally listed.
And you change that if you could.
I would change that in a heartbeat.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Witnesses?
I just have a brief follow-up. In regards to your discussion about you saying for, what is it, certain wildlife, you fly over once a year for 30 seconds and see something, and you wouldn't put that, correct?
I stated that, yes.
You're certainly not suggesting that that was done in the
Oh,
final
no.
process.
That was just an example of how you just have to be cautious on interpretation of data. And that's one of the biases that can come out of doing a survey that's not multi-year. That you don't detect it not because it wasn't there, it's because of the timing or just whatever it is for that given year. They really prefer to have multi-year, longer data sets to gain greater confidence.
And yet that suggestion for multi-year or several years, as you say in the advisory opinion at page 20, was not incorporated into the protocol that Mr. Gagnon issued that is set forth in Exhibit 213, correct?
No, that was not.
The chair pressed you on this question of unacceptable harm, which is one of the standards for this board, and you hesitated a bit in your answer, correct?
Correct.
And the response that you gave regarding unacceptable harm is nowhere in either the original or the supplemental advisory opinion from DEM, is it?
No. That was not my understanding of what we were responding to.
Thank you.
I do have one or two more if I could follow up. Mr. Osenkowski, you assisted in the drafting of the supplemental advisory opinion as well as the original advisory opinion, correct?
Yes.
And the supplemental advisory opinion as well as the original, but the most recent one is the supplemental, and it went out on August 15, 2017, is that correct?
Yes.
So by the time the applicant had received the supplemental advisory opinion, the applicant was clearly aware, or should have been aware, that DEM was recommending that the time frame for the survey on site should have been extended, either to complete seasons or, as you had recommended, to more years, correct?
Correct. I'm not sure what they were aware of, but I know that's from my interaction in the advisory opinion, that's what we stated.
Yet, has DEM received any supplement at all to the summer of 2017 survey?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osenkowski.
You're welcome.
Just a standing ovation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to go because I feel like there might be one more.
No.
Run away. Run away. Thank you.